Hi, I'm Jenny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here to share the speaker portion of our Connections Over Coffee gathering of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. Ellen Koronet is speaking on unartificial intelligence in a quick-paced marketing world. And you can read more about Ellen's talk and Ellen's website and all that Ellen does in the text of this video. But Ellen K is a social scientist, a creativity facilitator, corporate strategist, and marketing methodologist with decades of experience designing ways to bypass habitual thinking. Ellen's systems and tools facilitate the collection of opinions that explain and predict behavior, all while having game-filled fun. Ellen, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I have to find the share screen button. Again, you know I always do presentations.
You always do. So you are on, my friend.
Okay, thank you so much. I am Ellen Koronet, lnkcreative.com. You can find me there anytime. And I'm moving my controls away so I can just engage with you. Here we go. So, and the funny thing is I'm coming straight off of a conference that's happening right now in the marketing research world about artificial intelligence. So this is very, very hot topic here.
Ellen, excuse me. I'm seeing something with Lilia here.
Okay.
Anybody else seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. It's Lilia's sign up. So
Stop share. I think it's because I had this on the other screen. All right, here we go. Try again. There we go. Let's see if this works better. Tell me if you, how about that? There we go. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Lilia. Thank you. Okay, so the 2020s are really going to be known for our fast-moving artificial intelligence tech revolution. And I love this image because that's really what it feels like, right? We're just banging up against it right and left. And I would really love for it to be that more congenial kind of collaborative banging up that we can keep on doing. This is really a fundamental shift in the cultural landscape of heart-centered, especially marketing research or marketing, communications, advertising, the whole world of what we're trying to do to get our messages out. And if you see it as sort of, it's almost like the figure 8 that also happens within the creativity system that I developed, where I talk about the muse brain and the mentor brain. We're constantly reaching for the upside of something. And if we stay there too long, we fall down, we get the negative of it. So if you look at the personally crafted kinds of messaging and communication that we do as humans, it's very hands-on, it's done by you. It's service oriented. You can really put a lot of quality into the communications that you're sending out, and you can really be sort of one-to-one even when you're talking to a larger audience, because it's very relationship driven. But the downside of that is it can feel combative sometimes. So the competition kind of starts to creep in over the top of all the collaboration we're doing, right? And it can be very costly. It can take a long time and a lot of resources to get these messages out and to find the people we're trying to find. And it can be very hit or miss. You have to use a lot of volume to get at. Now, there's a lot of tools out there like the quizzes and assessments that I create that help to cut that down, but it can still feel very hit or miss. So then you go over to the auto-generated artificial intelligence side, and there you can be more hands-off. So it's done without you, which can be a real negative, right? And it's more volume oriented. You're losing the quality that you had. And it's much more transactional because there's just data coming in and data going out, right? But the exciting part of that is it frees time for you to be more creative, and you can be more cost efficient. You can use your time and your resources much, much better. And we can do something that's called micro marketing. We can actually target the people that we want to really be engaged with in a much more effective way than we ever were before. So here's the analogy that I love to use for this. We can really learn about this whole evolution from the idea of switching from gas to electricity in our cars. And even when you think about the auto, the self-driven vehicles that are coming into our world, there's a lot of fear about all of that, right? There's a lot of crazy things going on. So there's really 4 kind of lessons that we can get from this analogy. And that's what I'm going to go through with you for the next few minutes. So they're really all kind of risks and worries. The first one is, in resisting change, we're going to see the downside more than the upside at first. That's very normal. We're afraid of change, right? It can be really tough to think about who's putting the guardrails on all of this, or even something as practical as, where am I going to get the electricity for the car, right? So that's, where am I going to get the artificial intelligence for my work, right? Like, everybody hears about ChatGPT, but that's not really the only thing out there. There's so many others. So the infrastructure of keeping everyone safe and keeping the good stuff accessible, it can be very confusing and tricky for a while. And then we're going to need reminders to remember that we have road signs already. We have some structures in place that we can adopt and that we can remember to look at. And the last little piece of this is adjusting our routines and our self-care practices so we don't get run over by all of this stuff. So I'm going to go through each of those for a moment. The idea of resisting change, that we're going to see the downside more than the upside. And this came out in the discussion we just had here at On Purpose Woman Global Community. We were really talking about a lot of these fears, like our creativity is going to be stifled or replaced, or there's not going to be any jobs anymore because it's all going to be done by robots. The privacy is going to be compromised to the point of no return. That can be a very scary proposition. And the idea that we already are having a hard time deciphering what's true and what's not true, that's going to be even more tricky as we continue to get run over by the artificial intelligence world. The next big concern, and you can see here, I'm still drawing the analogy between electric vehicles, self-driven vehicles, anything that's becoming more tech and robot kind of driven, is the same kind of concerns that we're having here in the world of marketing our heart-centered businesses and brands out to the world to make a really big difference, right? So who's going to take responsibility for keeping everyone safe? Is it big tech, big data? Oh my goodness, I hope not, right? Is it actually the artists themselves, the entrepreneurs themselves, the creatives ourselves, who my friend, and I'm a super fan of Dan Navarro from the Lowen and Navarro, which was a 90s folk rock group. And Dan recently spoke at in front of Congress about this whole idea of the human element of creativity. And he's also on the Screen Actors Guild. He was responsible for some of the negotiations. So this is a real issue, is it really our responsibility to stop the rest of the world from stealing, from us and from creating algorithms that can take over our jobs? Is it the influencers? Is it the politicians, the lawmakers? Do we just let it go into the courts and let the Supreme Court decide for us ultimately? Is it a democratic process? Is it free enterprise that's going to make it all kind of come back into line? These are all really big questions. And here are some of the road signs we can start to think about. And then I'm going to give you some homework, because I'm thinking of this sort of as a workshop, right? So you'll see some more at the end of this presentation that you can kind of keep thinking about this yourself. But for example, if you see a windy road sign, or if you want to put up a windy road sign for yourself, the idea there in my mind is, go ahead and use a chat bot. Go ahead and use, chat GPT or Brad or, any of these big content creators, but don't lose your own voice. It's a windy road. You don't want to get off the path. You want to keep on your own path and make sure you're really paying attention to where your own speak is coming through. And I have a lot of clients who are doing quizzes and assessments with me, who often, when I ask them to create the results page at the end, they'll come up with all these automated artificial intelligence conglomerates of their message. And I almost never can use hardly any of those words because they aren't theirs. And so we have to sort of, pull back out and reconstruct it. And I have a tip about that at the end of this. The second little road sign I put up here is to think about the little way stations, right? So take a little detour into a rest area and have that voice to voice, face to face conversation. Don't lose track of that. You really need that. And in my world, that would be qualitative research where we're doing one-on-one interviews or focus groups, to not lose track of how people are reacting to things in real time and with their full emotions not in check. And then the third one I put up here is you could differentiate your brand. That's very important. Don't stop doing that, but don't take it so far that you just are going out fully automated without any regard for where you're headed, and you end up on a one-way street going the wrong way, right? We don't want accidents here. And then the next element that I find very similar to electric vehicles and self-driven, robots running our world is this idea that we begin to feel isolated or even numbed by the impersonality of it all, right? So let's check in with our hearts. And if you're not familiar with Spider-Man, a spidey sense is when you feel that tingling, those goosebumps, that, oh my goodness, something's happening, that I need to pay attention. Don't lose sight of that. And continue to send out signals from your own true brilliance, and continue to look at who are you really talking to now? Did you sort of shift gears a little bit too fast and start talking to someone that you don't really need to be talking to in a voice that isn't going to resonate with the people that you really want to reach? So dig back into the why behind it's at least 3 rounds in my experience. And based on research, you really need to keep asking why. Don't just take the first thing that comes to you. Really dig below and dig below and dig below, and do that periodically. And ask yourself, why should anyone even care about this message I was about to put out, or about this offer I was about to put out, or about anything that you're doing, whether it was informed by a bigger search through artificial intelligence or whether it just came from you. And then be mindful of the words that you're using, whether they were yours originally or not. So routines and self-care practices are really essential in this new environment. And here I have a sort of an idea of a grounding cord, right? So charge your own and be inclusive and inviting as you do it, so that others will benefit from your self-charged sense of who you really are and what you're really trying to say. So that means edit. Can't say that enough. And here was one of the tips that I started to mention a few minutes ago. When we translate something from one language to another, we always have somebody on the other side who speaks that language as well as ours go and translate it back. And that way you can find out where you're kind of missing each other. If you create something in an artificial intelligence way, And then you sort of translate that back to, well, what is it really saying here? And what did I really want to say? And you go back and forth between those two, you'll come to a triangulated place that's much more authentic, but still can reach and pull from many other sources and will save you time and effort and missed opportunities. And then meet with accountability partners. Let's not lose track of who else is around us who could help us stay on our own track. And then test it out. Talk in front of a mini audience or a mirror or whatever it is. So keep that reality grounded in where we really are by not allowing the robotic words and language and thoughts and ideas take over our emotions. And so I had 4 points I wanted to make. Now I've got the 4 counterpoints that will go right with that. So the first one is be mindful. Take calculated and supported risk, not just blind risk. Don't just blindly go out there. Pay attention to who you're following. And this really speaks to one of my favorite projects right now. I'm working with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and they have a Jedi or a committee or a whole department within the organization that is based on a university-based concept that is now taking over a lot of corporations. And I love that it's not just diversity and inclusion anymore. It's now justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in working with this organization, I'm really understanding that the idea is to not just be in our own little worlds while we're communicating and while we're doing the work that we do in the world, to really pay attention to who else you are listening to, what other voices are in your world. And then define, recognize, and follow those road signs. And I'll show you the homework in a moment. So those were 3 that I came up with, but you keep looking for road signs like that will help keep you on track. Adjust your own routines or self-care practices, get your spidey senses tingling, and don't ignore them. This is one way you can take a screenshot or a picture with your camera and get into my vlog series, or you can chat with me. And here is the homework. Thinking about a few more signposts. So a 4-way stop sign or a traffic sign. Where do you need to slow or stop to let traffic flow in the intersection? So there's other things going on, and I'm not just going to plow ahead with my, artificially designed research. I've got all these great ideas, boom, 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 boom. Well, let's pay attention to what else is coming in to the same intersection. And the slippery slope sign is one of my favorites. What can you do to maintain traction when you find yourself kind of going down a slippery slope? And then the crossing for kangaroos makes me think of the idea of protecting the security of cultural traditions, linguistics, and boundaries. So those are just some other signs that I thought of. And that is it. I can get you the download to the slides, and we have time for questions and chatting.
Thank you, Ellen. I'm going to ask everybody here to unmute yourselves, and let's show Ellen some love with your clapping and your yelling. So,
Yay!
thank you, Ellen. I'm going to stop the Facebook Live before we take questions, but I want to thank anyone who's watching this live or the replay. If you'd like to join us for one of our 9 free Zoom gatherings, or a month, or excuse me, 9 free Zoom gatherings a month, or an in-person in Columbia, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, or Tallahassee, Florida, you can comment and I'll tell you how to do that. You can also go to my website, which is in the text of this video, opwgc.com. Thanks so much for watching, everyone.